welcome to Kumospace. For those of you who are here for the first time, hope you're enjoying it. For those of you coming back, really thank you for your support. Yeah, like Sam said, my name's Yang. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Kumospace, and I'm here to tell you guys a little more about what we've been up to, some of the UX principles that we have that we think about when designing the product, and where we're going. Yeah, so about Kumospace, I think something that everyone agrees upon is that large video calls are not very fun. You have one person talking and then like 19 people kind of like waiting their turn to speak or getting bored. You can't have multiple conversations at once. And so we thought, hey, there has to be a better way. And so we took inspiration from video games, actually, because in video games there are lots of people in the same game and they have lots of fun, and virtual worlds can literally have hundreds or thousands of players. So we hacked together this as like a side project in May of 2020. We realized that we had something pretty cool going on, and so we launched in August. We fundraised in November, and we've been growing like crazy, and it's mostly word of mouth. It's been pretty wild. Yeah. But this is a UX meetup, so I want to talk a little more about some of the guiding product principles that we think about when building Kumospace. Sorry. The first one is how do we want to make it as easy to use as possible. The second one is we want to give people autonomy when they're using Kumospace. And the third one is when it makes sense, borrow from real life. Cool. First thing is ease of use. So we want Kumospace to be as broadly accessible as possible and make it as easy to use as possible. The first example of that is our go-to-market is the web browser. And the reason we chose that is because everyone basically has a browser. We thought about doing mobile apps, but it's actually really hard to like use on a small screen. You can't see that many videos. It's hard to move around and control. The other thing people ask us a lot is why don't we use VR headsets? And the answer is simply because not that many people have them. We want Kumospace to reach as many people as possible. A second example of this is no tutorials, right? We really believe that the product should be as simple to use as possible, and if people can't figure it out on their own, then it's too hard to use. And so like one example of that is like there are actually multiple ways to move around depending, and people use different ways. Some people click with the mouse, some people use the arrow keys. And if you're a video gamer, like me, you actually use WASD because that's how movement works in video games. And the thing is, like, for example, we don't even document WASD as a way to move around, but there are people that are convinced that's actually the only way to use Kumospace. So we consider that to be a success. Another thing we think about is personal autonomy. So like we give participants the freedom to do what they want in Kumospace. So one example of this is a request we probably get like maybe once a week is from an event host to say like, hey, if I'm talking, how do I make everyone else stop talking? Can I mute everyone else? And we actually think that's like not a good idea because in real life, you're not going to tape someone's mouth shut. Like you can ask them to be quiet, but yeah, in real life, like there's no way to like physically tell people to make people stop talking. So we don't think it makes sense in Kumospace either. And like it's actually really cool. So like if I'm giving a talk on one side of the room and like you and your friend are discussing this on the other side of the room, like that's like one of the best parts I think of going to talks is like you can like discuss stuff in real time. And like we want to enable that in Kumospace. And yeah, if you guys are like, man, Yang is saying like some terrible stuff, it doesn't make any sense. Like I don't need to be able to hear you if you're on the other side of the room. Another often requested feature is people are concerned about like being on top of each other and like invading each other's personal space. The reason we don't do this is that if it gets crowded, then like people have a hard time moving around because they're bumping into each other, and then you can get trapped. But like, how do you stop people from like stacking on top of each other? And the thing that we came up with and ended up doing is that we actually always put yourself at the bottom. So if you are stacked on top of someone else, you actually can't see yourself. And we think that, just by appealing to human psychology, people like seeing themselves, they naturally unstack. And so as soon as we did this, it fixed the problem immediately. And we didn't need to not let people stack on top of each other. Because people will just separate because they don't like being covered up. And finally, when it makes sense, we want to leverage ideas from real life. That's what I think really helps Kumospace feel real and immersive. As an example, in real life, when people want to leave a conversation, they often find some sort of excuse. You say oh, I'm going to the bathroom, I'm grabbing another drink, right? And the first time we beta tested Kumospace, we had 15 people in there, and then people were oh, I couldn't figure out how to leave the conversation without it being awkward. And then we're okay, well, that makes sense. But let's just build virtual drinks. So now, most rooms have a wine glass, a place where you can pour a drink and say, hey, I'm gonna get a refill. And so that's just a really fun and natural way for people to leave the conversation. And at the end of the day, it's just a 5-minute timer, but it mimics these social interactions that people are so familiar with in real life. Cool. And in terms of where we're going, first thing is we want more apps, more functionality within Kumospace. Adding your own music playlist, integrating board games, adding some whiteboard for collaboration are good examples of what we want to add in the next few months. Another big piece is customization. Everyone should have the ability to really decide what furniture they want. If it's an office, maybe you want whiteboards and other collaboration tools. If you're throwing a party, maybe you just want to, blast some awesome music and have, lots of virtual drinks. We think that once we let people customize their own space, it's going to be a lot more awesome than whatever pre-designed spaces that we've been able to come up with. And finally, we think a lot about scalability. So how do we get more capacity in the room? How do we get better performance on especially lower end devices, and adding native mobile apps? Cool. Finally, we're hiring. We need a lot of people to build this out. Looking for software engineers. We're looking for an illustrator to take the art design, the graphic design of the rooms to the next level. And we're looking for UI, UX designer to improve the interface and build out new features for us. Cool. Thanks, everyone, for coming to my lightning talk. So, Sam, I think what makes sense is I'm going to give everyone the megaphone. So you can ask me a question, but everyone in the room will be able to hear you. And that way we don't have to cluster in some place.
Perfect. That sounds great. Anyone have any questions for Yang?
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself. I'm happy to chat about.
Hi, sorry, I was muted. Still getting used to how to use this, but I love it. This is my second time using it. And I did have a question from my team who wanted me to ask you this because they noticed when you're moving around, it seems to be on a grid. Is that accurate, or are there other ways? Like you said, you can move with your mouse, your arrows, but as far as moving around the space, are there other ways to move around more quickly or pop over on the map or something, for instance?
Yeah, so you can click where you want to go, or you can use the keyboard to move. We don't let people teleport, and that's actually, I could have added that as one of the slides, but we actually don't think that it's jarring, right? To see someone pop out in front of you or disappear in front of you. And so it's not so much that teleporting is bad for the person using it, but it's bad for the people you're talking to. And so for us, we think that would be a jarring experience for the other participants. So we haven't added that. So yeah, you have to walk around with either a keyboard or mouse.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I had a question. Are these timed sessions? Or how does the length of one of these events work? Is it on a block of time? and then it just ends at that, because this is my first time doing this. And I had a thought immediately, wouldn't it be cool if there was a timed session, but we all got, instead of entering a room, we all entered an airplane, and we had a meeting on an airplane, and then by the time the meeting was over, we landed in some different country or something. I don't know. That's where my mind went, but
That's a cool idea. I'm not sure I'm understanding your question correctly. So when you say, is it timed? You mean like, does the room kick you out after some amount of time, or?
Yeah, yeah.
So our philosophy around the spaces, and this is more like thinking ahead than what's really available today, is that we actually want these spaces to be kind of permanent. They're more like virtual real estate. You know, people should be able to customize, decorate, make their room their own, or, you know, make it cooler than any real life space could possibly be. Like you said, like, you know, what if we could change the background over time? What if you could have this happen in space? You know, that's how we're thinking about it. It's basically virtual real estate.
Cool. This is Katie. I have a question.
Hey.
Hey, so since it can be controlled by both mouse and keyboard, and so I studied UX at General Assembly, and then I went off to kind of specialize in accessibility and manual testing, like with screen reader and using keyboard navigation only. So can you navigate the main controls via just a keyboard, like the stop video, the mute, the range, the map, the chat, and so on? Like, are those keyboard accessible?
It appears that they are not. Yeah, that's not something we've really spent a lot of time investing in yet, but I know that's something that like is pretty important that we'll want to get right in the future. Yeah, I mean, like we started a few months ago, and that's definitely something I want to take a look at after this for sure.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I like how like new it is, and I feel like that could even be a good opportunity when the time's right to think about the keyboard accessibility.
Yeah, actually, a lot of these actions have keyboard shortcuts. We just haven't published them anywhere.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
That's me. Oh, what's your tech stack? Like, what are you using to build this?
Yeah, good question. So right now we're using Twilio Video as our like backend for handling all the video and audio between people's machines. We have a Node.js server that kind of keeps track of who's in which room, where you are in each room. We use Google Firebase as a storage layer right now, and the front end is actually just React.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's pretty basic. Like, you know, we originally hacked it together. So, you know, if you ask me again in 6 months, half those things will probably be different, hopefully be different. But yeah, this is pretty quick, like almost MVP kind of tech stack.
So is everything that you create is mostly just like in-house tools and libraries?
Yeah, most of the code, I mean, like besides the frameworks I mentioned and the things we talked about, it's all kind of custom.
Cool. Thank you so much for giving.
Any other questions?
Just a random one. What made you guys decide to go with a video kind of avatar instead of like a customizable one or illustration?
The real reason there is I think it's because faces are like the most expressive part of like, you know, like it's the most expressive part of communication, right? Like, and like being able to see someone's face, I think is so important in terms of like, you know, understanding people well. And so, you know, we actually had an earlier version with just audio, and then we were thinking about avatars, but we realized that like videos just like really transforms the experience versus not having it. Like the prototype is pure audio.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool.